My name is Scott Giacoppo. I am the Director of National Shelter Outreach with Best Friends, and this is community cat mitigation. My first question, I think I know the answer, but are there any animal control officers in the room? Okay, I figured, because hopefully you guys are all across the hall in the animal control session. The reason I ask is because this presentation was originally prepared for animal control officers. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on who I am, and that'll explain why this presentation was geared towards animal control, but by no means is it strictly for them. You will absolutely be able to take stuff away if you are talking to people in the community who are dealing with feral cats or community cats or neighborhood cats or whatever you want to call them. You will definitely get tools on how to deal with the people who do not want those cats there. So my background is I've been in this business for a very, very, very long time. I mentioned this last night and someone said to me, I don't even remember 1988, I was in diapers. Made me feel really special in life. In 1995, I graduated from the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council as a special state police officer investigating animal cruelty in Boston. I had the privilege of being assigned to a couple of different units in the Boston Police. One of them was the Neighborhood Policing Unit, which focuses on community-based policing. And that's where I get a lot of the philosophies that I teach from that traditional law enforcement philosophy. In 2007, I became Chief of Animal Control for Washington, D.C. Animal Control, where I was responsible for all field services, including the implementation of a community cat program. Is Danielle in the room? Hi, Danielle. Danielle Bays, now with HSUS. Everything, I just want to say this, everything I'm talking about today, I could not have done without Danielle. So thank you, Danielle, for all the years that you gave me working with me in D.C. Thank you. When I first came to DC, I had a couple of mandates. One was to do a transition, make things change, and one of them was to fully implement a community cat program. I had never really done a community cat program, and there was one in place that was kind of a pilot, but it needed a kick in the pants, so to speak. And so I started asking people like, you know, Alley Cat Allies, Best Friends, Neighborhood Cats. I started gathering up all the information I could on how to create this program. And one thing that was kind of missing was the attention given to the field operations, animal control agencies that were out there knocking on doors and dealing with the people who didn't want the cats back. And that's something that we were struggling with as a unit. So we started taking pages from the wildlife control manual. We started looking at how are people, there's a lot of successful conflict mitigation out there for wildlife, and can't we apply that directly to cats as well? And we started doing that. We built the program, and I have to say that it was extremely successful in my mind. And what I've done is I've created this program to help animal control, but people who are out in the field work with those people who don't want the cats back. Now, what I'm about to say might not be very popular, but as an animal control officer, I have a sense of obligation to the community as a whole. I'm a public servant. So that means that I have to serve the people who love those cats just as much as I have an obligation to serve the people who don't love the cats and don't want them back in their yard. So when I talk to people, I do want to respect the fact that they don't want the cats in their yard. And my goal is to teach officers and people how to deal with those types of conflicts. So we're going to talk, I'm going to skip over some of this stuff because I think it's something that you've heard all day, right? You guys have been in here all day, which is fantastic. But I'm going to give you, hopefully some different spin on it from an animal control perspective. How many of you deal with animal control in your communities? Awesome. How many of you have negative dealings with your animal control in the community? I'm glad to see only a couple of hands. Okay. So this is what we're gonna go over today, and let's get going. So TNR, RTF, SNR, whatever you want to call it, we all know that it basically comes down to taking a cat from its home, and that is the cat's home. They are loved, they are cared for, they're born and raised in that environment, and we are taking them, we are sterilizing them, vaccinating them, air tipping them, and putting them back. And that's really what it all boils down to. But the component of conflict mitigation does come up, and again, that's what this is all about. But the program is working all over the country. In every place that this program is being implemented, the numbers show its success. And especially in today's data-driven world, we have the data to show that it works. It's dropping euthanasia, it's dropping intake, it's dropping kitten intake, everywhere in a very short period of time. You know, Pima County, within the first 2 years, the feline euthanasia rate dropped over nearly 90%. And you can't argue with these numbers. From a field perspective, you know, officers sometimes say to me, well, you know, that's a shelter number, and we're not the shelter. We have to do our job, and you know, and all that. But this does represent less calls coming into animal control. And this is something when you're dealing with your animal control agencies, you can reiterate with them that this represents less animal control calls coming in, less animals being picked up, less kittens being picked up. And I always say, you know, gosh, imagine what your call sheet would look like if all cat calls were taken off of it. And officers are always like, yeah, man, I'd love to see that happen, you know. And it can happen, and that's what has happened. So, you know, no matter what type of environment, rural, suburban, urban, it's working. It's working everywhere. I'm going to show a video on animal control.
Here at the Pima Animal Care Center, we've been doing our trap, neuter, return program for about 4 years. And really since its incarnation, we've seen positive aspects in the community that continue to surprise us each and every single year. So before the TNR program, there was no programming to help mitigate these concerns, to address the ongoing complaints going on with cats in the community. And so as a result of getting such a program, it's really allowed us to change the makeup of not only our internal operations, but how we engage the community and what we're striving to accomplish.
Come get your breakfast.
Finding the one thing that works in the community that people are happy with, that we're solving problems for them. There's so much that can be said about a spay-neuter release program, especially when you're in a large agency. Taking in cats day after day, not having an outcome for cats that are, you know, basically community cats was not the answer. Euthanizing them was not the answer for the community. Spaying and neutering them, making sure that they're vaccinated when they're out in the community, the most logical, reasonable thing, and the safest thing for them.
In the spring of 2017, we started working with Best Friends on a pilot community cat program at our Coachella Valley Animal Campus. Within 12 months, our cat save rate had increased by 76%. This program has been so successful that we're looking to expand it into our entire Riverside shelter system.
We're seeing less cats in the shelter, which is great. It's not been a hard transition for animal control officers. They wanted something too. I think what it really boiled down to was what resources our ACOs could bring forth to the actual problems that are out there. Dog bites,
cruelty to animals, barking dogs, other investigations that our department people are pressing on to get done. The more time my officers have to do these reports for, the better.
Dealing with bites, dealing with animal cruelty and neglect cases, really focusing on the things that I feel our community really wants us to be focused on.
If anything, the surprise has been the lack of complaints from the community. Because when this first comes up, many times city council members, elected officials think that it's going to be a big deal. People are going to complain because all of a sudden they're going to be inundated with these cats roaming around the neighborhoods. And that's just not the case.
I speak to people all the time, and it's like, I felt so bad for calling in. And now after talking to you, now that I know the real outcome or the possible outcome of these cats is going to be good, I feel a lot better about calling you guys. But once they hear that we have a program affiliated with us like this, it's all that better. That benefits the community, that benefits the organization, it benefits everything across the board.
Doing this has affected the community to show them that we're not the bad guy, that we don't want to pick up somebody's animal and euthanize it. We want to give them help. A cat tearing up the trash can, carrying them a deterrent. Talk with these citizens, spend more time with them, and once you spend more time with them, they see that you're not the bad guy. We care, and that's the biggest thing that they don't think that we do. So by spending time with them, showing them deterrence. I mean, they really see that we're the good guys, and it's been a good change.
Past just absolutely was not working. So working with the public is with deterrence and our basically trapping the cats and helping get them fixed has been kind of the highlight a lot of what I do.
So the biggest surprise for me with this program is really how the community has embraced it. It's really been a very big part of how the Pima Animal Care Center has expanded in the community, and it's one of our most viable programs that we currently have.
It's been great for the community so far.
Basically, I've been here 16 years, and we run ourselves to death with cat calls. Bring them in, hold the mandatory law, 72 hours, euthanize, fill them back up, a continual process. So finally, you just had to say, this is not working. So I started watching some webinars, doing some homework on TNR programs and solutions to cats. We just had to try something new, and I felt like, you know, it may sound drastic for our community, but I didn't have any other solutions. I didn't have any other resources. It was kind of that, what have I got to lose attitude. It is definitely cheaper, and this is where you're going to be able to get some traction if you're a municipal government with your county manager or your city leaders or your commissioners or elected officials. We set up a feral day where the Spay Today clinic opened up to do as many cats as they could. So we trapped 42 cats. 21 were females. All of them were pregnant with 5 babies each. So when I did the math of what it would cost to trap, house them for 3 days, which is North Carolina law, and then euthanize, it's thousands of dollars. We paid $40 per surgery. So for under $1,000, we fixed all those animals, returned them to the community where they're already being fed. They're already getting food source. We're protecting the community, we're protecting the cats, and we're saving thousands of dollars. And I have found, especially in government, or even as a taxpayer citizen, that's where you're going to get the attention, and that's the message they're going to hear.
The return on investment for community cat sterilization is incredibly high. It reduces intake. Our intake's gone from about 25,000 just 5 years ago, and through the community cat program, we've reduced that to just over 16,000. So we've reduced the intake by 10,000 animals in just a short amount of time. We are so proud to say that our save rate is about 90% for cats, and that really no cats are euthanized for behavioral reasons, and that's because of the community buy-in. We love the program, but if our community, if the people of Tucson and Pima County didn't love it and didn't find it to be such a wonderful solution, it wouldn't be happening. And it's not only happening, but every year it's growing, and we're getting more requests for assistance.
I would like to say to other animal control officers or anybody that's skeptical of the program is to try it. Let it go on for a while, and you'll see the number of cats being impounded go down and the number of cats in the shelter go down.
There comes a point where you have to take a stance. You cannot continue to just do the same things over and over again, as I said earlier, and expect different results.
I've worked in rural areas, I've worked in large municipalities, I've worked in areas with snow, I've worked in areas with deserts, and the thing that I've seen is it works. It's really just this program is effective.
And the program really has taught me and showed me that there is alternatives to what I've always known to do with the feral community cats.
The biggest surprise is how quickly, in the scheme of things, our euthanasia numbers dropped. Also, how many citizens have thanked us.
Our community leaders really want to solve problems for constituents, and TNR and community cat sterilization offers us this really easy way to do that. And it's humane, and it's the solution that our communities want across the United States.
So basically, especially since this video is, first of all, it's available on our website that you can download and show to animal control agencies that you're working with, trying to maybe influence their opinion of the program. It goes over, it talks to a bunch of animal control officers who were actually once skeptical of the program, but then implemented it and found out that it was the best thing since sliced bread. And it really is the best thing since sliced bread. I think it's better than sliced bread. I love TNR. I mean, all right, so I'm gonna back up a little bit, get a little personal. When I first started working in the shelter back in the late 80s, early 90s, we didn't have TNR. We didn't have any of this, and we euthanized cats coming in by the truckload. And we were always, always, always looking for ways not to have to do it. And when TNR came out, man, it was like the clouds opened up and the sun came down. It was amazing. And one of the things that it's difficult for people who have been in that position to accept is that what we have done in the past, we didn't need to do. And that's a heavy burden that people have to live with. I have to live with that every day of my life, that I've euthanized thousands of cats before TNR. But now TNR is here, we can move on and we can get with it. But when you are dealing with someone who performs euthanasia, especially animal control officers, please bear that in mind, that what you are telling them they are doing is wrong, and that by taking that animal's life, they're wrong. And a compassionate person can be a heavy burden for a compassionate person to deal with. So when you're dealing with these officers, please take that into consideration. Anyway, so these guys here in the video, they were skeptical. And one thing that bums me out is that there were two officers that I did a presentation for, and I did this exact same presentation for, and they sat in the back of the workshop like this with their arms folded, typical animal control, right? Just sitting there, yeah, okay, buddy, sure, yeah, right. And at the end, I called him out. I said, what do you think? And he's like, this won't work in my community. My community's different. Everyone says we're different, right? We're different. Come on. So I made a deal with him. I said, listen, I was like, unfortunately for you, you don't have a choice. All right, the law's been changed. Your agency's starting to do a TNR program, an RTF program. You don't have the choice. You have to do this. But I'll make a deal with you. You do everything I say. If it works, I'll come back in a year and put you on video saying it works. And I got both of them on there. And I also made one of them hold a kitten. Yeah, and I got it on the video. But please, so download this video. It's on the Best Friends website. And if you get the opportunity to talk to animal control, show it. Whatever your media outlet may be to promote it, please do. So we're going to move on. One of the things that people have when we're talking about implementing these programs, and as I just mentioned, these two officers said, well, it won't work in my community, we're different. Officers, and a lot of people, not just officers, but people have sometimes a negative opinion on what the public's opinion really is. They don't know, they think. And especially with people who are dealing with these people all the time, we tend to see things through a clouded lens. Because we only deal with the bad. We only deal with the people. I don't want these damn cats in my yard. He's spraying, he's doing this, he's crapping in my yard, blah, 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 blah. Getting up on my car, doing everything we hear about all the time. Those are the only people we often deal with. So we have this clouded judgment of what the program's really all about, that what the public wants. We also have a clouded judgment about who these people are that are caring for the cats. Especially officers, and I know some of you, know too, but basically, people, when you think of a community cat caregiver, more often we think of this person, right? Trust me, she exists. She's real. I mean, this is not just a Homer Simpson cartoon. She's real. I lived across the street from one, right? Crazy Rose, daughter, but. These are the type of people that give community cat caregivers a bad name. And this is the impression we get when we think of them. But when in fact it couldn't be further from the truth. As you all know, everyone in this room knows what a community cat caregiver really is. It's just your neighbors, people in the community, professionals, whatever. Kids. This is Philadelphia. They're handing out flyers, see cats, feed cats. They're looking to, get people to call in, reporting community cats that need sterilization, that need the TNR program. Over here we have it's a winter shelter building event. And we used to do this in DC where, and I know it happens all over the place, but people from the community would come down to the event and they would go to like Home Depot or Lowe's. I'm not going to promote any one or the other. But they would go and buy the supplies for like 2 or 3 of the shelters and come down and as a community come together and build them. these aren't the crazy cat ladies that are out there, doing things we don't want them to do. These are our everyday neighbors. These are the people who care about the cats. These are the people that when animal control removes the cats, these are the people that we piss off, that we turn against us. Some of you people in this room might be one of them. I've done this. I've been one of these people, not in uniform and not in a sports coat and all that. But they're just everyday people, and we need to realize that. Public opinion overwhelmingly wants TNR. Here's a study that we did in 2014, and the question posed was, if you have a cat in your yard, you basically have 3 options. TNR, nothing, or bring them in and do lethal injection. And these are the results, overwhelmingly. It also corresponded with 2 other studies that were done by Petside.com and Alley Cat Allies. The numbers are in. They don't want us doing lethal roundups anymore. They just don't. So let's talk about the mindsets we're dealing with here. Let's talk about both animal control and the communities. Because I believe, and for those of you who I teach this to animal control officers all over the country, so just rest easy. I say this to everybody. So I think that animal control needs a whole new mindset. We need to accept the fact that trap and kill doesn't work. It never has, it never will. We have been doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And we all know what that means. That's the definition of insanity, according to my friend Mr. Einstein up here. It just doesn't work. And regardless of how we feel about outdoor cats or the wildlife controversy and all of that, regardless, what we have been doing doesn't work. So why do we keep doing it? And while people are arguing, and there are a couple of great minds in this room right now, Peter Wolf and Brian Cordes. I mean, they're geniuses when it comes to all the scientific stuff. But while those guys are out there doing all this scientific stuff and they're arguing with the Audubon Society and all that, right? That's what happens. This big national controversy. What? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to me. Sorry. While this whole big national controversy is going on, we're still in the streets dealing with the cats. And what we're doing doesn't work. So anyway, I throw that out there. We need to stop being more animal control needs to be more proactive than reactive. The community is used to the old ways that we've done things. Just come and take the cat. We need to show them that we're the experts. We know what to do, and we're not going to just do something because you tell us to do it. When we remove one cat to make one person happy, we do so at the expense of all those other people. So that one person says, "Oh, the cat's getting up on top of my car," right? We go out, we take the cat. Now all the people who are caring about that cat have a negative impression of animal control. And trust me, the majority of ACOs that I've dealt with, there are some exceptions, but the majority of ACOs I deal with are compassionate people who care very much about the animals in their community that they deal with. They're good people. We need to stop lying to the public and ourselves. We know when we pick these cats up, they're going to die. We know. And cats are safer on the streets than in the shelter. Everyone in this room knows that. They're safer. When we're dealing with a person, now we're going to get into the stuff that you guys can really take home with you and apply rather than just saying, "Oh, I'm going to mention that to animal control," which I hope some of the stuff that we're talking about. Incidentally, this presentation is going to be put up on our animal control resource webpage. So if you get one of your animal control agencies interested, you can just send them the link and they can watch this entire presentation that I'm doing. All right, so let's start talking about the complaint, the people who call up. People who call up, their frustration level is already going to be at a tipping point. They're already pissed off, right? They're already mad. They've probably already tried to do things to resolve the issue. I remember one place we were at, it was a big sign company, and they had tons of cats, and you could smell it, but someone told them that mothballs would chase the cats away. So they got a bunch of mothballs and they threw them out into this into this yard. Man, talk about a smell. I mean, we know that cat smell. We all know that cat smell, right? Add mothballs on top of it, right? All we needed was ammonia-soaked rags, to tip it off. But people hear things. People say, well, yeah, use mothballs. I mean, we got there, the cat's probably batting the mothballs around, all we need is a bell in those things, and we're good. But this is when we're talking to someone who doesn't want the cat in the yard, we have to take into consideration where they are in their mind. And this is where they are. They may demand action based on what they think is needed. Take this damn cat. Get rid of it. I don't want to see it back. What the hell do you mean he's coming back in a couple of days minus a couple of things behind and a little thing on top? Right? They don't want to hear it. How many of you have had this conversation with someone? Right? Almost every hand in this room is going to go up. They may, this is more for animal control. I used to love when people would threaten to call the city or call my boss, or my officers, or Danielle would have someone threaten to call me. This is where I tell animal control to back up the officers. Do not back down. We cannot ever back down from this. I always welcome them making threats. When they say that they're going to hurt the animal, make threats. How many of you guys have heard someone say, if this animal comes back, I'm going to kill it? Right? I've been investigating animal cruelty for most of my adult life, and if there's one thing I have learned is that someone who is going to hurt an animal is not going to warn you about it first. They're not going to tell us about it. They're just going to go ahead and do it. So I always say, well, you want to threaten me? That's a criminal offense, and you don't want that. You don't want it. We can deal with that. It's easy. It's so easy to, and this is what the bottom line of this whole presentation, it is so easy to keep a cat out of a yard, to condition that cat to never want to come back into that yard again. It's so easy. We do it all the time. But we need to let them vent. The goal here is to de-escalate the situation. Get them to a point where they can have an adult conversation. Because we're all like that. When we're riled up, we can't have a rational adult conversation. I know I can't. When I'm not traveling and I'm working from home and my cable goes out, right? My internet goes out, I got to go to Starbucks, and I can only take so many iced grande lattes in a day before my heart explodes, right? I don't want to work from Starbucks. I don't want to sit in my Jeep to have a private video meeting with my boss because the only reception I get is, I want my damn internet back on now. I pay for this every month. I call the internet company or Comcast, and after I talk to 5 or 6 people, I'm even angrier. And the next thing I know, they're trying to explain to me that a transformer blew up or some crap. I don't care. Right? We're all like that in some way, shape, or form. We can all relate to that. This is no different. This is no different. The difference is that when we show up, we're as emotionally charged about keeping the cat there as they are about getting rid of the damn cat. So, and that's what happens, and that's where the conflict comes in. But if we stop and we let them vent, and we show them some empathy, we de-escalate the situation, and that's common. We do that all the time in animal control work and law enforcement. We de-escalate that situation so that we can have that rational conversation. We want to explain that it's common and that specific programs are here to help, and that we can solve this problem for you. No one wants this problem. Nobody wants this, no one would want it. I want, I don't care about cats coming in my yard, but I always go into these calls thinking like this. We all know that cat smell, right? I mean, come on, we all know that smell. The male cat spraying, right? We all know the smell. So I'm a big sports fan. And I travel a lot, and I work a lot during the day and all that. I look forward to my Sundays. Okay, and on a Sunday before a big game, I like to go out on my back deck, barbecue, with my boys, have a couple beers. I look forward to that every week. I can't imagine what that would be like if every time I stepped out onto my back deck, that smell hit me in the face. I wouldn't want that. Nor would you. So I go in there thinking, okay, I can understand what this person is thinking, why he doesn't want him climbing up on top of the car, defecating in the garden, or doing whatever it is, and we'll talk more about some other things as we go. One of the successful things that I've had is to calm them down is to, ask them where the problem is happening and get them to walk with you into the yard. I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was on a doorstep, and there was literally a car, probably where that camera is, and I could see the footprints coming up the back of the car, up onto the roof, and this guy had called animal control numerous times complaining about it. So animal control went out and they installed an ultrasonic motion sensor, which we're going to talk about later, but it wasn't working. It wasn't working. And he was yelling and screaming about those effing cats and blah, blah, blah. And I could see the car right there, and I was like, well, why don't you come and show me where it's happening? And he's like, it's right there, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, I can see that. Why don't you come down and show me where they're coming from? Where are they coming from? Yeah, oh, that's horrible. I wouldn't want that on my car. I love my Jeep. I wouldn't want my Jeep scratched up. Meanwhile, I go four-wheeling, and yeah, anyway, I love it. Anyway, my Jeep's all scratched up. But anyway, I want to see where they're coming from. I want to get them talking. Right? I want to get him talking. So he's talking, he's calming down. I'm reassuring him that, oh yeah, this happens all over the place. We have programs that can solve this. We can help. And one of my favorites is, most situations is, I'm really glad I'm here because today's the last day you'll ever have to deal with that if you listen to my program, if you listen to what I say. So there are some specific talking points, and one of them is, removing them doesn't work, that they keep coming back. And I've even said to people, look, for years, animal control has been taking cats that have been causing nuisances away, and they keep coming back. And we keep coming out. It doesn't work. This program does work, and this is working everywhere. I wouldn't attempt any of these conversations until they're calmed down. You don't want to talk to someone who's flailing their arms and screaming about the cat. De-escalate the situation. Now you're having an adult conversation with someone. You're actually having a conversation. You're sharing information with them. And the information is that removing them doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. This is working. This program works. I actually didn't believe this when I first was told to try it by my boss. I didn't believe that anyone would care. But when you have someone at a rational place where you're having a conversation, intelligent adult conversation with someone, and you tell them honestly that the cat will be killed if they bring him to the shelter, the great majority of people will say, no, I don't want that. I don't want anything bad to happen to him. I just don't want him getting up on top of my car. I just don't want him spraying. I just don't want him doing this. I just don't want him doing that. You got them. You got them as soon as they say that. They're all yours. You got them on the hook. And assuring them that it's easy and it's a long-term solution rather than just putting a Band-Aid on a bleeding artery of cats keep coming into the yard. And that the sterilization solves a lot of problems in and of itself. If someone's complaining about spraying, and that's their biggest problem. Now, I always ask them, what exactly is the problem? Were you with me when we went to that hotel, Desiree? In Yuma? Yeah, we went to a hotel, and we watched, Desiree and I watched a cat walk down this brick wall, and he stopped and sprayed, and we saw a whole bunch of cats. And when they came out, and we were like, well, what's the problem? Well, they're spraying all over the place, they're yowling and fighting and all that stuff. That's the easiest problem. They didn't care that the cats were there. What they cared about was the spraying and the yowling and the fighting. And sterilization itself solves that problem. But I explain it to them. I don't say, well, once the animal's sterilized, they're less apt to spray and blah, blah, blah. I talk to them like I would be talking to a buddy at a bar. Probably not a good analogy, I know, but, because yes, this is how I talk to my friends in a bar. It's, like when a male cat sprays, he's putting up a billboard saying, hey, all the unspayed females on this side of the billboard of mine, don't come over here. When a female cat yowls, because it's only the females that are yowling, she's yelling across the street, hey boys, ignore that billboard, come on over. And when they do, because they will, they fight. But when you sterilize them, There's no need to throw up the billboard because you're not protecting anything unsterilized. You have nothing really to protect because, you know, the guys throw up the billboard being typical guys. This is mine, don't touch it, you know. It all goes away. And when you explain it in more layman terms, it gets through to them sometimes. I'm not saying that the people we talk to aren't the brightest bulbs on the family tree, but we've all been there. So let's talk a little bit about what it is exactly that we do when we, to prevent these cats, to condition these cats from coming in the yard. There's a whole slew of them. How many of you are familiar with any of these? Are you guys like, am I just talking to someone who's like, we invented this stuff? I don't. All right, cool. And thank you, we have some here. We have a whole bunch of stuff here so we could show it. But some of these are I'm gonna pass them around in a minute. Let's go. Oh, I'm not supposed to walk out from the cameras.
No,
Sorry, Jonathan.
You can go in between the speakers.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Wish I'd known that 10 minutes ago. All right, now I feel free. All right. So this here prevents cats from walking across the top of the fence, obviously. But you know, when we look at this, and one of the problems I had this situation in DC where a cat was walking across the top of a fence. And every day, these two dogs would come charging out, hit the fence, trying to get to the cat. And obviously the cat was like, you know, well, what are you going to do about it? You know, he kept walking. One day, misdirected aggression, both dogs ended up in the vet hospital getting sutured up, right? Owner was really upset about that and wanted the cat gone. So getting back to what I said earlier about identifying what the problem is, because if her only problem in this situation was the cat walking across the top of the fence. So I didn't need to talk about digging, spraying. I didn't need to talk about any of that. The only thing I needed to talk to her about was how to prevent the cat from walking across the top of the fence. Now, this device here, and all this stuff can be bought pretty cheap on Amazon, pretty inexpensive. But for me, this is the Richie Rich version, because some Richie Rich people want their fence looking nice, and they want it to blend and all that stuff, whatever. But in this particular case, I went down to Staples, and I got one of these office mats. And I actually got the rolled up one, not one of those, but the roll up one. And they're inexpensive, only like 20 bucks. Took my pocket knife, cut it out to the size of the fence, and just using her staple gun, stapled it across the top of the fence. On the bottom of these, it's very similar to these, only not as extreme. They're little nubs that make it uncomfortable for the cat to walk across. That was the last time the cat ever walked across the top of that fence. So I solved the problem, didn't have to remove the cat, and even if another cat comes, they're going to jump up and go, ah, crap, and jump back down. And crap, and jump back down. They're going to find another way around. Now, if she had called back and said, now he's going through my front yard, and he's, you know, I'm afraid my dog's going to go through the picture window, okay, we'll fix that too. But these are great. I love these. And I'm sure most of you know this because you guys are all cat experts and all that, but a cat will never jump over a solid fence like that. They'll never jump up and over it. By nature, they have to jump up on top and make sure it's safe to jump over. Make sure that there's no predators on the other side, right? So even if it's a smaller thing, if it blocks the view, cat's not going to go up and over it. They're going to go up on top of it, and when they do, they're going to be like, ow, crap, and jump back. Hopefully not jump over, but if they do, then they're going to learn eventually not to jump up. But I love that. I love those devices. This here is another thing for gardens. It's flexible. It's the same principle. There's little spiky things sticking up. And you can bend it, you can shape it, you can cut it, and put it into a garden and just cover it with a layer of topsoil. And that way when the cat goes to dig, it doesn't hurt them. It's just uncomfortable. They can't dig in it because of the spiky things. My favorite is the ultrasonic motion sensor. Sprinkler system and the ultrasonic motion sensor. When a cat walks in front of this device, it triggers, motion sensor, it triggers a light and a high-pitched sound that is inaudible to us old people, and some young people have said, I hear it. I've never heard it. Huh? Sorry. I'm opening this. I trust there's no, anyway, so this is pretty cool. It has a stake a thing for a stake in the ground, and it's solar powered. And every time the cat walks in front of it, it's going to elicit, emit a loud screech and a flashing light to scare the cat. And that's exactly how it is. You put it in the ground, and when the cat walks by, it scares him away. Can anyone who hasn't seen my presentation before tell me why this did not work in Charlotte, North Carolina, with the car? This was at the end of the driveway. I went over, it was functioning. Didn't really have to because I knew the problem as soon as I looked at it. Car was pulling in and stopping. It's blocking it. It's blocking it. So what I did was I lifted it up. In the back there's little hooks. I mounted it up high, aimed down. So when the car came in, now it's aiming at the problem, the top of the car. Cat never went back up on, well, probably went back up on the car and said, Jesus, what was that? And jumped down, probably did it a couple times and never went back. So when we're talking about these deterrents, the reason I bring that up is because you have to be strategic about it. You have to think about where's the best place to put them. Where should we put this? What's the best use for this? And in this case, putting it in the bottom. Now, originally, if I had started talking about deterrence, both the officer I was with and the homeowner would have re-escalated, saying they don't work. I got one right there. It doesn't work. Blah blah blah, right? But it did work. It worked perfectly. It just wasn't placed properly. And these are great. My preference, and I'm not going to say because these probably will work for a very large area. My preference is for this, or if you can't use the other one, but for a more narrow focused area. So let's say we take the top of the fence away from the cat. He can't come up over the top of the fence anymore. So he decides to go around, these are all situations I've dealt with, I've done. So they decide to go around that fence now. This, mounted in the ground, aimed right at that corner, as soon as that cat turns the corner, he gets hit with this and he takes off. This is a great device, one of my favorites. You can actually buy these on Amazon for under 50 bucks. The other one, my other favorite, because this works not only on neighborhood cats, but it works on dogs, coyotes, raccoons, possums, neighborhood kids, is a motion-activated sprinkler system. And it basically, exactly what it sounds like. You hook a hose up to this, and anytime an animal walks in front of it and trips it, they get sprayed with water. And that's going to scare the bejeebus out of them, so they won't want to come back. I'll just start passing it around. I'm not going to open it up. But it's highly effective. And I was I think it might have even been Yuma as well, where I was dealing with a guy who said, well, every time I see the cats come in my yard, I run outside and I chase them with a water bottle. It's like, well, that's great. You're making him afraid of water, but you're making him afraid of you, not your yard. So now the cat would look around, he's not in the yard, and he's going to go into that yard and take a chance. With this, 24/7, that cat knows he's going to make a beeline around that yard. Here's the real beauty of all of this, is that you don't need to have these in there forever. Once you train the cat not to go in the yard, they're not going to go in the yard. But we still have to talk about why they're coming in the yard. There's a feeder somewhere. There's a feeder somewhere. So I want to tell two quick stories about where'd my thing go? Did I put that back over here? Yeah, I'll pass this around too. So I was working with an officer out of Pitt County, North Carolina. I'm sorry, I skipped you, Charles. Went right to you, sorry. I was working with an officer out of Pitt County, North Carolina, and he embraced this. He loved it. He was popping these things everywhere. And one day he called me from the site, and he said, I have a situation where the device isn't working, and I don't know why. It's like, all right, tell me about it. He said, well, I've switched it out with one that I knew to work, and this cat is just not fazed by it. Any idea why this was not working? Oh, sure, I just opened it, and you're gonna break it? Where are you from? No. Any idea why that device wasn't affecting this cat? I'll start with a hint. He was an all-white cat. He was deaf. He was deaf, and it wasn't phasing him. So we swapped it out for one of these. Cat Didn't have a problem. Next situation, same officer called me and he said that these cats are, so the situation was there was a nondescript cement doorway, front of the house, porch, 3 steps down to the step walkway to the driveway. And every morning this guy came out, there were cats all over his feet, meowing, there were cats all over his yard, and he couldn't get rid of them, tried mothballs, whatever. The officer went and he started setting up the motion sensors and everything. These cats would stop at nothing to get to that house. So Sean's talking, he's like, Scott, I don't know what's going on. They're trying everything to get to this front door. There's no food, there's no water, there's nothing. No one's feeding. I can't figure out what's going on. So I said to him, I was like, Sean, do me a favor. Park down the street. This is where the cop in me comes out. It's like, park down the street a little way so you can see the house, but go there early in the morning when the guy leaves for work and just to see what's going on. So sure enough, the guy comes out, cats are all over the yard, they're running, they're dodging the device, they're going in and out, they're doing everything they can. He leaves. Within 5 minutes, what do you think happens? Wife comes out with bowls of food. It was their only food source in the neighborhood. Right? But she was so afraid to tell her husband that she was the feeder because he didn't want those damn cats. Right? So he's like, oh man, he called me. He's like, oh man, she just came out, she's feeding. I'm like, yeah, I kind of figured something like that would happen. So what we did was we had her work on a feeding station in the backyard off to the side. Husband said, fine. If it means keeping the cats out from under my feet, fine. Put them out back. Problem solved. We didn't even need the deterrence after that. Again, it's being strategic. It's knowing what the problem really is. It's not just saying, hey, I have a cat in my yard, I don't want him in my yard. Oh, here's an ultrasonic motion sensor, put it right in your yard, bye. Doesn't always work. It doesn't always work. So when we go out there, we want to find out how is the cat accessing the property. When we're out there, I call these site assessments, evaluations, whatever, site evaluations. How is he accessing the property? Is he coming through the bushes in a little game trail-like situation? Is he coming across the street, from the left, from the right? We want to find out where they're coming from. We want to find out what type of damage the cat's really causing. Because if they're not doing anything and it's just some crotchety old SOB that doesn't want to see a cat in his life, then we have a completely different situation. We talked about that. The sterilization will reduce most of the unwanted behaviors. I didn't talk about roaming. Sterilization will obviously deter them from roaming around. Most of the time when they're roaming, they're looking for females. But if they don't look for females, there's really no reason to go out. And again, what would the best device be for that situation? Is there a large area? Is there water source? Are they digging? Are they sleeping on top of the car, fighting with other cats in the house? I threw that in there just to prove a point. I have 4 cats that were born in my neighborhood, and I took them in and tried to deferalize them. Didn't entirely work. So they weren't really candidates for adoption. One was, but by that time, anyone who knows me knows a cat enters my house, he stays. So I'm making this whole thing up about wanting to place them up for adoption. I never intended them. Yeah. Anyway, so we were doing trapping and sterilizing in the neighborhood, but the father cat, the big daddy, I could not trap. How many of you have had one of those situations? You get that one damn cat, it's like, go in there, trap. Couldn't trap them for years, right? So downstairs in the house where I used to live outside of DC, I had in the basement level, there was a window that was at ground level, and I had a cat tree that was right there. And my cats used to love sitting up on that cat tree with the window open, and they got a view of the street and smells and and all that cool stuff. Well, every now and again, Big Daddy would come to my yard and fight with his sons through the window. Right? So here's Scott, the big animal control expert, right? I know how to deal with this. So I grabbed one of those ultrasonic motion sensors and I put it outside my window. Worked like a charm. Big Daddy never came back to the front of my window. But guess what else didn't happen? My cats never went back up on that cat tree. So I had to rearrange my man cave. I don't know if you can call it a man cave if you have a cat tree, right? I think you can, but.
It's a cat daddy cave.
Yeah, it's a cat daddy cave. I had cat trees and Tom Brady pictures, and I think that equals it out, right? Yes, I got to work Tom Brady into my presentation. All right. But so again, getting back to that whole thing about being strategic, really being able to think about what's best and where's it best, not just, I've seen way too many people just get these devices and start handing them out willy-nilly. Now, granted, in most cases, they probably will work under those circumstances, but not always. And when it comes time that it doesn't work, it's going to affect the belief that they will work in the person using it or the officer handing it out, which I've seen firsthand. And we want to continuously reiterate our understanding of their frustrations. Again, what is attracting the cat to the location? Can it be eliminated or modified? Why is that cat going into that yard? Is there food, water, shelter source? Is there an acceptable location you can make more attractive? Now, I talked about my neighborhood. Directly across the street from me was a family who loved seeing the cats in the yard. Next door, well, actually, it was the Groom family, the DC family, I forget how to say the last name, but then Crazy Rose. Crazy Rose only wanted to feed. She didn't care about sterilization. She didn't care about any of it. All she wanted to do was feed her babies, right? She's that woman I showed in the beginning, that cartoon. That's Crazy Rose. Love her, right? So the Groom family liked having the cats in her yard, but next to her was Barbara, who was a gardener and a bird feeder and wanted all the cats dead, right? So here's what we did. We went to the Groom's yard and we planted cat grass on this side of the house. We set up a shelter. We put up water stations. Crazy Rose wanted to feed, so we left the food down at Crazy Rose. And we gave the cats, when we put the shelter, the Groom family actually got a broken branch that had fallen down, this big ass branch that broke, and they put it up against the shelter, and then they ended up building like things off of it so the cats could go up and play. Cats had everything they needed in the Groom family yard, but right next to her was Barbara. So what we did was we took two of those devices, put them in the Groom's yard, right at the edge, and faced it just a little bit out. So I know this is probably not a politically correct term to use these days, but I built a wall, an electronic wall, and in her main yard, in her actual yard, we put an electronic, a motion-activated sprinkler system, okay? Now, she loved that because now her garden got, water, and the cats would go over and say, boom, and come running back. They didn't want to cross the, go over the wall, or under the wall, or through the wall, or through the river, whatever. We made it so that the cats had everything they needed in one yard. And there was nothing in their yard for them. Every time they went near her yard, it was hostile. Why bother? So they stayed over here in this yard. But giving them, identifying someone in the neighborhood is a great, and there's someone there. We know if there's a cat in that community and he's healthy, we know someone's feeding him. Someone cares about that cat. Let's take it to the next level. This is something that I always encourage officers to download onto their phones or iPads or laptops, whatever they're using, so that when they deal with these people, they can show it. So if you have an electronic device that can download a video, and you're dealing with someone who doesn't want the cats in the yard, again, all part of the site evaluation and the conversation, show them this video, and it just shows even more on that it can be done.
When working with community cats, you may come across people who prefer not to have cats in their yards at all. Today, we'll show you some simple and inexpensive techniques to deter cats from finding their way into spaces where they're not wanted, as well as popular deterrents available to purchase, none of which are harmful to cats. One of the most popular deterrents is an ultrasonic repellent. They are staked right into the ground, and when the cat walks by, the motion activates an ultrasonic sound. This sound scares the cats away, but isn't audible to the human ear. Several varieties are available online, and we recommend the Hunt or the Frost Fire Repellent. Another popular motion sensor deterrent hooks directly to a garden hose and sprays the cat when he walks by unwanted areas. Again, there are a few different varieties of these products sold online, but we recommend one by Have a Heart. There are also many scent-based deterrents available on the market. Have a Heart Critter Ritter, for example, is an all-natural formula that repels by taste and odor. You can also find shaker powder and spray formulas online that work to repel a variety of different animals. Before landscaping your yard, it's a good idea to lay down materials that make it hard for cats to dig in the dirt. Poultry fencing with garden staples is one inexpensive way to keep cats from digging in flower beds. You can easily cut the fencing to fit around shrubs and plants, and once it's in place, cover it with rocks or topsoil. Landscape fabric and chicken wire also work well to help prevent digging. If you use wire, just be sure to put the sharp edges down to avoid injury to the cats. If you don't like the appearance of the poultry fencing or want to take the time to lay it down, there are other materials such as lava rock, pine cones, or large bark, which will make it difficult for cats to dig in the soft dirt. One more inexpensive trick to keep cats from digging in areas where they're not wanted: chopsticks. Place them in potted plants and space them out evenly for the best results. Large, flat stones are also a great option in potted plants. Plastic office mats are another inexpensive solution. Turned upside down, the sharp nubs keep cats from digging in window wells or other areas where they're not welcome. Upside-down CDs and a plastic 2-liter bottle with water on its side can be used to create reflections that cats don't like. Plants that give off a smell that cats don't like are also a great option. Examples include lavender, rue, pennyroyal, and scaredy cat coleus. Scaredy cat coleus is known to work particularly well. However, it's not native to North America and may be difficult to find without looking online. If you'd like to relegate cats to an area of your yard where they're welcome, you can try planting fresh catnip. They just can't resist it. For problems with cat-associated odors, there are a range of products you can use. This one is called Yard Odor, which you spray directly on the affected area to help eliminate the odor. That's a look at our most successful and, of course, safe deterrent methods. For more information, please check out our website at bestfriends.org/stray cats.
Okay, there are tons of additional resources out there that when we are dealing with these people that we want to provide. We want to provide printed material. There's so much out there. You know, again, this slide is designed primarily for animal control, but refer them to CCP staff. You know, we have mentor programs all over the country that we put CCP staff in. A lot of them are here today. One of the things we started looking at was doing a deterrent. We did a deterrent loan program. Rather than traps, we would loan out the deterrents and tell them how to use it. There was always a concern over who was going to buy these products and who was, whose responsibility it was. My take on it was, it's the property owner's problem. They want it solved. I can show you how to solve the problem, but I'm not going to solve it for you. In some cases, yeah, I mean, it's, you gotta, nothing's black and white, but in most of the cases, when someone would scream at me, well, who's gonna buy this damn device? Like, well, you are. I'm gonna show you how to use it, but you gotta buy it. I'm not gonna buy it for you. There's, there's the video for the deterrence. We have, are you guys familiar with the Best Friends Community Cat Program manual? I see a couple of these. I don't know, what are these for, Liz?
They're loaded on there, but it's a cat trivia contest at the end of the day.
All right, so study up on cat trivia because this handbook is fantastic. It's all about how to do a CCP program, and there's a lot of this stuff in there as well. And that's that there. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And speaking of handbooks, we have the new Humane Animal Control Handbook that was just published not too long ago. You're going to see it floating around the conference. They're free. Just grab one if you see one, unless it's in someone's hand or, yeah. So that's it.